All right, welcome to the Wartime MMA podcast, UFC 327, Prochazka versus Ulberg, Miami. Big card, a lot of great fights, and yeah, good main event, stacked throughout. But without further ado, just getting right into our early prelim opener, Radke versus Francisco Prado. Let Mike kick it off.
Yeah, good fight opener, honestly. I got Radke though. I think Radke's gonna take the dub here. Prado's too small for the weight class, and honestly, the more that we've seen Radke, he's gotten better. And for a person that's 35 plus, that's like unranked. Like normally, we just see that person slow down and look awful, but Radke, he's been making improvements, man. Ever since he's been getting slept by like certain good people. He's losing to Mike Malott. He's losing to Carlos Prates. Those aren't bad losses at all. They're ranked welterweights. Uh, the thing with Prado with me is, like I said, he's too small. I don't know if I could pick him too young as well. Like he's been taking a lot of beatings, and I could just so see Radke putting him down. Uh I don't know if I want to put. I don't know if I want to pick Radke by finish. Francisco Prado is very hard to kill, so I'm gonna go with a 29-28, maybe a 30-27 decision victory by Charles Radke. I think he'll maintain the distance. He'll pick them apart. He's also got the reach advantage, so I think he will use that in the factor into piecing Francisco Prado up.
I'm delayed on the camera for some reason, but
I can go if you want.
yeah, go ahead.
Sure. We are in Miami, opening a fight of the card. We got Charles Radke and Francisco Prado. It's a good scrap. Both these guys like to do most of their work on the feet. Francisco Prado, a former lightweight, moving up to welterweight, hasn't really had too much success at a UFC level. All of his pro losses are by decision, all of them pretty much essentially being in the UFC. Going up against Charles Radke, who as another former lightweight turned welterweight. So I think that's kind of an interesting aspect of this fight. With him, he could strike. He's got decent power. We obviously know he's been very vocal in some of his wins. He's had some very memorable post-fight press conferences, post-fight pressers, interviews, really, not even press conference. What I think separates the two of them for me in this fight is the grappling of Charles Radke. I didn't even really know he had a game like that until his last fight, where he really was able to mix it in well. With Prado, I just feel like he's not a real welterweight. I feel like he's kind of a lightweight at welterweight. He's still pretty young, and he's had a rough go of it in the UFC. I just feel like Radke's more inclined to be in his prime right now, whereas Prado, I feel like still might be just a little too, not even green, just like it's not working out right now at the UFC. I think he should kind of leave, come back when he's like around 27, 28, maybe like 2 to 4 years on the regional scene, build up some wins, build up some experience, maybe even consider going back to Argentina. I'm gonna go with Charles Radke. For me, if he mixes in the grappling, I really feel like he can separate himself pretty handily in this fight. But if he does choose to strike, I reckon from a technique perspective, I think like he's pretty solid. I think he's sharper than a Prado, and I think he probably has the power advantage. I would give the speed advantage and durability to Prado. So I could see this being a situation where Radke's doing well and then Prado kind of fights his way back in. Maybe it's 1-1 going into the third. And it's a hard fought fight, but Radke being more in his prime, being more experienced, I think he mixes in the takedown when he needs to, gets top time, gets some ground and pound off, maybe even a sub attempt, and does enough to edge a competitive decision. I'm going to go 29-28 Charles Radke, where he did enough in the first 2 rounds that he can kind of arguably lose the third, but still have gotten the takedowns, gotten the ground and pound, gotten the significant strikes, and maybe even sub attempts off. I'll go Radke by decision in a war.
Yeah, I do have to agree. Making the first clean sweep of the card, I do think Radke's the overall better fighter. When Prado beat Otman Zaitar, he like threw a bunch of elbows, and I was like, "Oh, hold on here." But ever since then, he's just looked very mid, very short, very stocky T-Rex type of guy. Really just is not the frame at all you want to see at welterweight either. Honestly, kind of small for lightweight. Looking at Tapology, they actually have Prado 1 inch taller than Radke, which I think is honestly bullshit. I think we're going to see right away that Radke is the taller guy, despite him being listed at 5'9" and Prado being listed at 5'10". There's no fucking way he's 5'10". He looks 5'6". I don't think Prado's that great. He is young, like Tony said, so maybe, there is a world where he can come back to the UFC as a better version of himself. He does kind of have like that Dober chin gene where I feel like it's going to be very hard to take this guy out, but he's had some bad performances in the UFC. He got low-key fucking brutalized by Zellhuber, and that is aging terribly. To have your face like all bloodied and fucked up after a fight against Zellhuber. And he's taken his damage against guys like Veritnikov too, which also really is not a good look. Uh, Jamie Malarkey, I don't care if that's to your debut. That's a bad loss. I think all these guys he's losing to are probably worse than Radke is. Radke, I think, is the bigger welterweight. He's the guy with the bigger frame for welterweight. And Prado's just a short little T-Rex of a guy who's going to want to get into the pocket, which is where Radke succeeds. I think Radke's the better boxer, and I think he's got more power. And he's the better wrestler. So I think really one of my locks of the card, I think Radke's got it. I'm going to say decision, 30-27, more or less dominant.
Alrighty, moving on. We got the next fight taking it on to the middleweight division. We got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Vicente Luque. Two former middleweights. It's quite unfortunate. Luque moving up because he can't really, I guess, stick the landing in welterweight anymore. Kelvin Gastelum, too fat to make the weight. Not very disciplined either. I really don't like Kelvin Gastelum, but I do think he is going to win. I am hoping Vicente Luque just starches him out cold, but I don't think that it's going to be difficult to see that Vicente Luque that we've seen of old come back. He's taken too much beatings, and the damage in his he's taken too much damage, man. It's kind of hard to pick up Vicente Luque in big 2026 now. I think it's just, honestly, I don't think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be very boring. I just don't see Luque winning. It has to be like some type of, like I said, the only way I could see Luque winning is if he goes back to his old ways where he's brawlic and killer be killed style. But honestly, I can't see it. I think he's done, man, unfortunately. I am going with Kelvin Gastelum. Plus, Kelvin Gastelum actually looks in shape, which is crazy to say. He's always looked like a tub of lard every single time when he fights. But I think I'm going to cut it short here. I think I've yapped too far about this. I think Luque's done. I got Kelvin Gastelum via decision. 29-28. Maybe I could see him finishing him too, but I don't know.
I could go. Yeah, I have to agree. I think both of these guys aren't in their prime, but Luque has certainly lost his prime much more significantly. He's kind of like the opposite fighter he was in his prime, whereas Gastelum still's got a great chin. He's still got fast hands. I feel like sometimes we watch Luque and he looks like he's moving underwater. Certain guys, like against Themba, there will be like a flash. It's like, oh, he's back, but he never really has been. Just a bum opponent that he happened to fight. The Joel Alvarez fight didn't look great. Joel Alvarez didn't finish him. We all expected that to be like sanctioned murder. It wasn't. So I think thinking Gastelum's going to go out here and chin him is unlikely as well. Gastelum, despite having the better chin, he hasn't really been chinning anybody himself. I feel like he's also kind of downgraded his style to be a little bit more like footwork and technique heavy and less pressure. But I still think that's enough to beat somebody like Luque, who's going to be even more inactive than Kelvin is. Kelvin still keeps a relatively high pace. It just isn't as he doesn't throw as significantly as he used to. Just more on the back footwork. Like the Chris Curtis fight is a very good example of like what I'm talking about. Like he kind of fought at Chris Curtis's pace, which isn't a super high paced, although that was for a Curtis fight. But I still think he'll just be able to touch him up. Like Mike said, I think on paper this is a fun fight. I don't think it's going to be as fun as it looks like it's going to be. Like, oh, Luke Gastelum, this is going to be a banger. I think it's going to be kind of boring. I think Luke is going to be scared to engage. Gastelum has been subbed by like Brady, but I don't think Luke is anywhere near that level of submission artist, especially now. I can't really see him getting Gastelum down, and Gastelum's not really a guy that shoots a lot himself. If he does, maybe there's a world where Luque snaps down a Darce choke on him, but I think all things considered, I see Gastelum winning this fight 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10. Just by far the more dangerous fighter and the less weak fighter. And he's changed gyms, got away from all those taco trucks and tortas in Arizona, got away from Henry Cejudo and his cringe captain, all that shit. I feel like it's a good change of scenery. He looks like he's in relatively better shape. He's got some semblance of ab muscles. There's like you can see a little bit. It's not just pure lard. So I'm gonna go Gastelum here. I'm gonna say decision, probably 30-27. Just Luque's scared to really engage.
Second fight of the night. Weird one, to say the least. Vicente Luque at middleweight. I guess this is a middleweight debut. Going up against, a guy who kind of just goes in between a welterweight and middleweight, and Kelvin Gastelum. I would say, the records are relatively similar, but Kelvin has fought more higher level opponents and been in like bigger fights, I reckon. Like he was an interim title fight. Vicente, like his highest ranked matchup was it like probably like between like Jeff Neal or like Leon Edwards at the time when he fought him, something along those lines. I would say durability is very much in favor of Kelvin Gastelum, as we all know how good his chin is. He's been hit by guys like Adesanya, Cannonier, the list goes on. He's fought like between welterweight and middleweight, some of the hardest hitters in both weight classes. Vicente Luque, he's a guy who used to thrive in wars and chaos, and he's actually like top 3 all time in welterweight submissions, but a majority of those were like club and subs where he would harm his opponent, beat them up on the feet, and then kind of sub them with the darts. It's a good fight. It's just weird to me that Luque is fighting at middleweight. I think that really helps Gastelum. As we all know, he's had problems making weight and, struggling with that, even more so than the fights at times. I just feel like the durability is so much clearly in favor of Kelvin. And ever since the Jeff Neal performance, for obvious reasons, I don't feel like I have to list. If you know the situation with Luque, what happened in that fight. I picked him in his next fight after, though, against RDA. That's because he was the bigger guy. He was able to impose his will in the grappling and the clinch. He was just able to like kind of just strong arm him. He is like longer, taller than Luque, Kelvin, but Kelvin's bigger. He's more durable. I would reckon, like punch speed and power, he's the better boxer overall than Luque. I see Luque being very much at range, at distant, not trying to engage, like Alex and Mike said. He just doesn't look the same. This is a guy like who used to want to get into a war and get into a car crash. He doesn't look like he wants to drive like 80 miles an hour, like he wants to take things slow, technical, and ease into the fight. I think early on, maybe Luque will like be annoying at range, like throw his kicks and like kind of just dart in and out with the 1 and 2 and kind of make Gastelum kind of chase him down. I don't see any real grappling success happening for Luque. I don't think he's going to take down Kelvin. I think he's just too heavy. I think being shorter and stockier, I feel like he'll be able to stuff those takedowns. I'll go Kelvin Gastelum. It's just like Luque doesn't look like he wants to be there for real. Like he doesn't look like he wants to get hit the same. I'm torn between a late TKO and a decision. Kelvin hasn't gotten a TKO since 2017. It just looks like Luque doesn't want to get hit. That being said, I feel like Luque is going to try to, make Kelvin chase him and be on the back foot. So I guess I'll go with the decision. Because I just feel like Luque is just not going to want to engage and just kind of try to point fight. But Gastelum eventually is just going to say, fuck it. He's going to take a shot to give one. And I think he's going to get the jab going, find his range in the boxing. I'll go Kelvin Gastelum by decision.
All righty, moving on. We are going into the lightweight division. We got Markel Medeiros taking on Chris Padilla. Just moments before Chris Padilla just missed weight. I wanted to pick Chris Padilla. I really did. But I'm going to go with Markel Medeiros. I think he's just, I don't know. There's something that's telling me that this one's not going to stick for a Chris Padilla win here. I think Chris Padilla is good. I do think he has been making improvements. He had them vicious elbows in one of his recent fights. But something's telling me Marco Medeiros is going to get the job done here. I think he's got a proper camp, while Chris Padilla, I think this one's like a short notice fight, if I'm not mistaken, for Chris Padilla. Yeah, I think it was a short notice fight. Yeah, he was supposed to fight. Markel Medeiros was supposed to fight Sajikov, but Sajikov withdrew. So that's kind of what is going on here. I think full camp's going to favor him, and honestly, I looked at how Chris Padilla looked. He didn't look in shape. He kind of looked a little chubby. You could tell that it's a short camp for him. So I don't know how he's gonna look. Something's telling me that Chris Padilla could get it done, but I'm gonna go with Markel Medeiros, man. I think he's just gonna get the job done here. I'll take the underdog shot. Younger, bigger. He doesn't have the reach advantage, but and the size gap isn't really that crazy. I get that, but I'm gonna go with who's the healthier fighter, who made weight, who looked like who had the better camp, and it didn't really look like Chris Padilla had a great camp, unfortunately. I wanted to pick Chris Padilla, but today it was kind of like a short notice turn of events. Like, I didn't like how Chris Padilla looked in that weigh-in. But yeah, I think I've yapped far too long about this. I'm going to go with Markel Medeiros by decision. I think he's just going to land the damaging shots here. Chris Padilla is going to look out of shape, bent up, out of shape, and he's going to look a little slower than he's looked in his last few fights due to the training camp. I'll go 29-28 Markel Medeiros decision. I'll take the dog shot.
Tough fight. Two guys been on the come up. I think both are undefeated in the UFC as well. Both have had some tough fights where they've had some split decision scenarios. Chris Padilla versus Jai Herbert comes to mind, where I really was expecting Padilla to shoot more often because I know how good of a wrestler he is, but he's been getting more confident with his hands. He's been really adopting like this Thai style of fighting on the feet with elbows and just leg kicks and just standing in like a Thai style. I do think in certain matchups he will bring the wrestling back out. Like, I think in this matchup it's a very good matchup to do so, and I think he will. I think honestly coming in 2 pounds overweight might honestly help him if he's going to use that wrestling style against somebody like Medeiros. And he's a grappler by trade first. Medeiros has faced some grapplers recently, and honestly, I think Austin Hubbard could have won that fight. I also think Landon Quinones could have won that fight. And I think if I'm going to pick like who I'm going to have a split decision to, I'd rather have a split decision with Jai Herbert than I would Austin Hubbard and Landon Quinones. The only person he really clearly beat was Mark Choinsky, who's honestly somebody he should have finished and doesn't deserve to be in the UFC. Marco Medeiros came in pretty hyped, but I really haven't been impressed with anything he's done in the UFC. He hasn't shown me the finishing potential that he showed in his Contender Series fight. I think Padilla's tough. I think he's actually the more damaging striker. The way I see Medeiros getting a KO is leg kick TKO or like a knee up the middle. But I honestly don't think he's going to be able to do too much against that. I think he's going to be checking the kicks of Medeiros. Padilla will be with his Thai style. And I just don't think there's a lot of damage coming back from Medeiros, whereas I honestly think Padilla is going to be landing the more damaging strikes. I think he's the bigger guy out there and the wrestling background. So, and I also like how Superlek landed an elbow on Haggerty like a week before, and then 1 week later, Chris Padilla landed the same elbow on Rongju and won the fight, and he credited it. He's like, yeah, I saw that. And it's like, I thought it would work in this fight. And so he's somebody who I feel like he's a learner. He gets better. He like realizes things. He's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try that out in my next fight. So I'm going to trust Chris Padilla here. I think he's a good fighter. And I think I can honestly see him getting a ranked opponent at some point. I don't know if he'd beat the ranked opponent, but I think I could see him getting it. like into a Chris Duncan, Esteban Ribovic type of position where he's facing one of these ranked guys. So I'm going to take Chris Padilla. Give me 29-28 UD.
Interesting fight here in the lightweight division. Short notice replacements. Chris Padilla, as Mike alluded to. This was originally supposed to be Nazim Sajikov going up against Markel Medeiros. So I think that kind of tells us a little bit in terms of the expectation the UFC has with a guy like Markel Medeiros. Nice record, trains at a Factory X Muay Thai. They've been in the midst of some controversy as of late. He seems to have skills at range on the feet. Markel Medeiros does. Undefeated in the UFC, but both these guys are undefeated in the UFC, and both have had some close calls, as Alex alluded to. Chris Padilla having the split decision to Jai Herbert, and Markel Medeiros having the split decision to Austin Hubbard. Both of us showed a little bit of weakness or vulnerability, but still was able to pull the win off. I think, a benefit of us having this podcast as late as we have, we were able to witness the live weigh-in show. We're filming this Friday, and right now, and we saw Chris Padilla was the only guy that missed weight. So there's two ways to look at it. Not a great camp like Mike picked for Markel Medeiros. Maybe Padilla just looks overweight. He doesn't look like he's in shape and things like that. Or there's Alex's way of looking at it. With it could be actual advantage for him to not have had sustained such a harsh weight cut and come in with more energy and more weight to be able to implement the grappling. I think I also agree with Alex's statement that I'd rather lose a split decision to Jai Herbert over Austin Hubbard. I watched both those fights. I felt like Jai Herbert could have won his fight against Chris Padilla. I thought he did better in the striking. He's a very technical striker. He trains with Leon Edwards. And I saw the Austin Hubbard and Markel Medeiros fight, and I thought the first 2 rounds, Austin Hubbard out-grappled Markel Medeiros, was able to get control time and things like that. So I think both these guys can do something in this fight that could affect the other guy. I feel like Medeiros at range could be a problem for Padilla to close the distance on, track him down, use his footwork. A lot of those Factory X Muay Thai guys are pretty decent on the back foot. As for Padilla, I feel like he's a better grappler and more dangerous than an Austin Hubbard. It's a compelling matchup, but I'm going to lean towards the mindset of Alex. I think the weight miss is actually going to help Chris Padilla, specifically in the grappling exchanges, as well as be able to not be so drained as much as Markel Medeiros is for having made weight. I do think Medeiros is a decent prospect with his striking, but his grappling is a legitimate hole, and I feel like the gap there is more exploitable than the gap on the feet. I feel like Padilla can compete on the feet with Medeiros more than Medeiros can compete on the ground with Padilla, if that makes any sense. I think a submission threat is possible. I think, like Alex said, I think the more damaging shots is specifically on the ground with the elbows. I think Padilla can be very vicious. He can open up cuts and things like that. He really won the Hubbard fight, Medeiros, off of the damage he did in the 3rd round with an elbow. I feel like Padilla is the type to do that to him. So this is going to be a really good scrap. But I'm going to go with Chris Padilla. I'm going to go sub. I'm going to go late 2nd round sub in a scrap where I think in the 1st round, Medeiros is going to look sharp. He's going to look locked in on the feet and at range, but Padilla will be able to push him up against the fence, get his exchanges when he needs to, and even get a takedown. Mark Choinsky in his fight versus Medeiros had his back. I feel like if that's Padilla, he could either threaten the submission or try to flatten you out and go for some damaging ground and pound. I'm going to go to a late 2nd round sub for Chris Taco Padilla in a war where he was able to get elbows off on the ground and standing, and he's able to get to a position where Medeiros doesn't defend his neck, and he finds the rear naked choke. I'm going to go with the 2nd round rear naked choke in an absolute scrap.
Alrighty, moving on. We got our first and I think final women's MMA fight. It will be in the strawweight division as Tatiana Suarez will take on Lupita Godinez. I really want to pick Lupi. I really do. But I've seen her face grapplers like Tatiana Suarez, and she does not do well. She was getting held down by Mackenzie Dern, even though I thought she won the fight off damage. But Mackenzie Dern was holding her down, and I think if Tatiana Suarez gets you down, she can be very dominant. Uh, I like I said, I want to pick Lupita, but I'm gonna go with Tatiana. Sorry if I look rough, y'all. I'm going through terrible allergies. Um, but I got Tatiana here though. I think she can get the takedowns, even though I was not quite impressed with her last performance against what's her name? Her last fight was just not that
Amanda
impressive.
Lemos.
Yeah, Amanda Lemos. She looked horrible against Amanda Lemos, but I don't know. I think Tatiana Suarez is just better, I think, on the ground. And I think when it comes to grappling game and women's MMA, you got to go with the person with the better grappling. Although I could see Lupi stuffing the takedowns and having a great fight, she could win the last 2 rounds and get a 29-28 decision. But I think they really want Tatiana to get a comeback story here. Plus, I think they want her to like show that she's the better, like she is the better out of Patchy Mix. So I think they kind of want to sweep that under the rug that Patchy Mix is her husband and she is very dominant. So I'm going to go with Tatiana Suarez here via 29-28 decision. I do think she will look bad in the later rounds, but we'll see what happens. I really want to pick Lupi though. I really do, but I think I'm going to go with Tati, mainly just being the bigger and stronger grappler.
Yeah, I think right now in particular is like the most obvious time to pick against Tatiana just because she's coming off of her first loss and Patchy Mix as her husband fucking sucks. That loser energy might have worn off on her, as I kind of joked. But historically that's actually not true. Usually you have one terrible sibling and one really good one. One great training partner and one mid one that just takes, there's an Artem Lobov to the Conor McGregor. So I honestly don't think it's too far off to say Tatiana is really good. And right now it's just a really bad time to think about her as like a really good fighter. Whereas a year ago before the Wei Li fight, I think we all would have, thought Lupi's probably going to lose and pick Tatiana unanimously. And I'm just saying the community, not you guys in particular, but I feel like right now in particular is the time to fade Tatiana because Patchy Mix sucks. She's coming off her first loss, but I honestly don't think it's too bad. Wei Li's, one of the greatest champions right now in the women's divisions. Despite her not having a belt, she can just go down to strawweight and take it back whenever she wants. I think, Tatiana Suarez is a good style matchup against Lupi. I feel like Lupi struggles against bigger grapplers, girls that can hold her down that are bigger, even girls that don't have the takedown and control game of a Tatiana, like a Jandaroba or Mackenzie Dern, who really isn't known that much for control as much as he is submissions. And these are, jiu-jitsu fighters, not wrestlers. They're supposed to be getting the subs, whereas Tatiana, her style is built around control time. There is a world where maybe Lupi can like scrap her way to a decision, but I think the Richie fight recently proved something to me. Like in these women's divisions, you can out scramble a takedown, but if you're going to keep getting taken down, just being like the smaller fighter physically, you're still going to lose that fight because women's divisions, they really don't have damage. I wanted Richie to be scrappy and like kind of get it out on striking, and she just couldn't because there's no damage to be done in women's divisions, really, unless you're like one of a few girls. So in this fight, I think Tatiana, being the bigger grappler, should win. We've seen that as a problem in Lupi's game. I do worry about Tatiana Suarez as stand-up because it's dog shit. But, a year ago, she was still really high on everybody's radar and was a legitimate threat to beat Wei Li. Obviously, now that Wei Li beat her, we don't see her as good as we once did. But I do still think she's one of the best in the division and will beat somebody like Lupi, who I think is kind of falling into the role of journeyman. Like she's like the Dan Hooker of strawweight. She's gonna win a couple, get to like number 7, lose, and then lose, and win a couple, so on. So I think Tatiana's the better fighter overall, bigger, more dominant. I'm gonna say Tatiana 30. She could lose the third round, but I think it'll be dominant. I'll say 29-28.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a clean sweep. Literally copy and paste everything Alex said. I think he pretty much said everything better than I can right now. I agree completely with every statement. I think Tatiana Suarez is the more promising fighter. And looking back at it, I feel like she lost the decision to Whaley, right? Tatiana? She didn't get finished, right? I rate that. She got her ass whooped. Like she could have got TKO'd. Like Yao Jian Yan, even though she went to decision, like there was like an instance in that fight where it looked like she got TKO'd and subbed against Whaley. So to be able to take that much damage, I feel like she's a very tough fighter. I think the most dominant aspect of the fight is Tatiana's wrestling. I feel like that's where the widest margin of victory can happen in the fight. I do believe Lupita Godinez is definitely the better boxer or striker overall, but Alex said it best. I feel like in these women's weight classes, unless you are like an Amanda Nunes type power, it doesn't. It just like compared to a dominant grappler, like the striking just doesn't equate enough damage. Is there a world where Lupita Godinez could sprawl the takedowns and land damaging shots and just kind of coast to a decision? There definitely is with Tatiana striking, but I feel like she'll be determined to make it a 2-fight win streak. I like that she had the Lemos fight after losing the title bout against Wei Li. I feel like that was to build confidence against a much more powerful, better overall striker, more dangerous fighter in Amanda Lemos, who I do believe Lupita Godinez probably has better overall grappling awareness than Lemos, but she's not as dangerous and she's not as technical a striker. I do think she's a good boxer, but she's not as good a striker as Amanda Lemos. Lemos is fast, dangerous, powerful, like kind of the total package on the feet. And she's able to take her shots, take Whaley's shots. I don't think she's going to crumble to Lupita Godinez's shots. So I think her takedowns and control will be more valued than the damage and the strikes of Lupita Godinez. I think it can be close. I wouldn't even rule out a split, but give me Tatiana Suarez by decision. I just think she's the more, like Alex said and Mike said, I think she's the better overall fighter. She had the more promising career. And Godinez ain't bad, but Suarez is, I just think, a different level. So I'm going to go Suarez by decision.
Alrighty, moving on. We got an interesting fight in the lightweight division. We got Esteban Ribovics taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Tough fight. I really want to pick Esteban Ribovics. I really do. I do think he could stuff the takedowns, but his last wins aren't aging well, and his performances in those wins are not aging well. I really don't like Gamrot. I really don't. I really want to fade him, but this just screams like a Gamrot performance where he just holds Ribovics down and just out manhandles him and just gets him to the ground. There is a world where Ribovics could catch Gamrot. Gamrot has been looking pretty chinny, and he does look shit on the feet from time to time. And we got to see how his confidence looks after that demasculative performance against Charles. But Charles Oliveira is great. And after the Charles Oliveira's last fight, that loss is aging not bad at all. It's just Charles is really good, and he is improving in his wrestling and just an overall great grappler. So you cannot take that away. Esteban Ribovics is not Charles Oliveira level, unfortunately. I really want to pick him. I really do. I really, really want to pick him. But I'm gonna take Mateusz Gamrot. I think he's gonna get the takedowns. I think he's gonna play it safe. It's gonna be a very boring fight. This just screams a 30-27 nut hug decision by Mateusz Gamrot, where he just holds him down, manhandles him on the grappling, and Esteban Ribovics just gets frustrated.
Yeah, this is a tough fight to call. I feel like the narrative recently at lightweight has been a lot of prospects getting fraud checked. You had Bahamundis recently. You had Ludwig Klein not too long ago against Gamrot. Chris Duncan last week. I feel like a lot of these guys have been getting fraud checked, and even not against the best opponents at lightweight. You're Zellhuber losing to Bobby Green, Chris Duncan losing to Moicano. I think a lot of ththese guys are getting pushed unnecessarily. I think they're getting good wins in the unranked portion of lightweight, and then they come into a pretty difficult stylistic matchup in the rankings and they lose. I don't think Gamrot's great. I don't really like him that much. He's pretty boring, but his style has been proven to beat even the greatest fighters at lightweight on the right day, like people like Arman Sarukian. Despite me thinking Arman should have won that fight, and him losing to people like Dan Hooker, which is really fucking bad. And that's enough to almost make you want to pick Ribovics right away. But the thing is with Ribovics, and why I'm not going to be picking him against Gamrot, is just because I haven't seen him against somebody like Gamrot on the ground. The only people I really remember him facing that grappled were Loic Radzhabov, where he lost, and Kamwela Kirk, which was honestly a pretty close fight. And good old Kirk boy, he got cut from the UFC. Kirk ain't that great anymore. Kirk fell off. So, getting out grappled by Kirk like that, okay, I'll stop. But, Gamrot's a lot better than these guys. This was earlier in his career, but his losses, as Mike said, they haven't really been his losses haven't been aging well, and his wins. Zellhuber isn't a great win anymore after seeing what Michael Johnson and Bobby Green did, compared to, Ribovics going to war with Zellhuber. The Unks masterclassed him. So, Elvis Brenner was getting chinned by everybody around that time. Like Joel Alvarez fucking turned him into tuna salad with knees and elbows. But Ribovics, had a really tough decision with him. Somebody like Gamrot, like I said, not that greatest, but he has a thing about him that, can give these prospects difficulty. He's got good cardio. He's got good pace. He's one of these guys that'll shoot a lot of takedowns. He'll make it a grimy, kind of boring fight. He doesn't care if it's boring. And a guy like Ribovics, he wants to swing and bang. He wants to make it, a fight of the night sort of fight. And I just feel like, compared to some of these other Argentinian prospects, I think Vallejos is the real one. I think Ribovics was kind of like temporary Vallejos, like Vallejos at home until Vallejos got signed. I like Ribovics, but I think, he just hasn't losing to Nasrat ain't great either. Quillen murdered him. And at that time, we saw Quillen as like kind of a grappler. Whereas Ribovics has been, a striker the whole time. He turned McKinney into Golden Freddy. He was hyped up at one point, and he still is. But I just think Gamrot's tough. I'm going to say 29-28, maybe even a split decision. Gamrot, I could see getting dropped. He got dropped by old man RDA. It's not my most confident pick on this card, but I do think the grappling of Gamrot is good enough to beat somebody who hasn't faced that level of grappling yet. So I'm going to say close 29-28 decision. Gamrot wins.
Great fight here in the lightweight division between Poland's Mateusz Gamrot, representing American Top Team, going up against Argentinia's Esteban Ribovic, representing Killcliff FC. This is a battle of good lightweights and good gyms in South Florida. This is American Top Team, the powerhouse, the best gym in the world, in my opinion, going up against Killcliff, formerly Sanford, if I'm not mistaken. They have a lot of good guys, too. This is a good fight. It's a clash of styles. Gamrot is your, prototypical grappler. He's going to chain wrestle. He's going to look for submission attempts. He's going to just, keep it move like a Colby Covington style of wrestling, but with jiu-jitsu, if that makes any sense. That's how I would say Gamrot's style is. Esteban Ribovic is like a technical brawler, in my opinion. He's a guy who has good boxing, but wants to go 100 miles an hour, wants to brawl. And he seems to have the gas tank for it. He's got high pace volume and high pace pressure. He's able to keep that like sustained for 15 minutes. Like he looks like how he looks in round one than he has in round three, I reckon, his style. So both these guys have good gas tanks. They're well conditioned. I think it's an interesting fight. I'm more of a Gamrot fan than most. I liked him coming into the UFC from KSW. He only really has lost to really good fighters. In his debut fight, he lost to Garam Kutateladze. It was a close fight. You could have given it to him. He lost to Benil Dariush. He lost to Charles Oliveira recently. As we all know, Charles is simply just like that. He dominated them in every facet of the fight. Ribovic, he's had some close fights. He's had some losses. I think this is just simply, does Gamrot get the grappling going? If he doesn't, Ribovic is going to be the better striker. I think the two losses Ribovic had against Nasrat Haqparast and Loic Radzhabov, I think Haqparast striking was like better than expected in that fight, particularly his boxing. And Loic Radzhabov was able to get like 9 takedowns on him. Gamrot, I do think, will attempt like 9+ takedowns, but I don't know if he's going to have as much success on the feet against him like Nasrat did. I think Gamrot is tough. He's never been knocked out. He's been subbed now by Charles. Ribovich ain't going to grapple with him, so we don't have to worry about that. This is just simply, do I get takedowns or do I not? He gets takedowns, but does he really? He has like a 37% takedown accuracy in the UFC. He's attempted like 130 takedowns, only gotten 12. Unless he's getting like Ribovich in like submission positions or destructive ground and pound, I don't know how he's going to separate himself from a scoring standpoint. And I'm a Gamrot fan more than most. Mike will tell you, like, I like Gamrot more than most. But I'm actually going with the Argentinian in the upset. I think Gamrot will get takedowns, but it's not going to be enough. I feel like he's going to find a way to work his way back up. This does sound like a BS prediction and this and that, but my rationale as to why I picked this pick is what Alex said, the Dan Hooker fight. I was really shocked how Dan Hooker was able to defend the takedowns when he couldn't defend like Dustin Poirier takedowns in his fight. How is he defending like Gamrot's takedowns and being able to like effectively fight him? Gamrot landed shots on the feet too, but I think Ribovich has the chin for it. I think he wants that type of fight with Gamrot. He's going to pressure him. He's going to take away the distance. If you watch Gamrot fight, when he strikes, he'll throw his 1-2, and then he'll kind of like reset, like give himself enough range to shoot a takedown, get his ankle pick, and get the grappling going. We know that's what Gamrot wants to do. He wants to get the grappling going. I think he will get takedowns, but I feel like Ribovich is going to work his way up. And even if he doesn't, I feel like the shots that he's going to land on the feet are going to be more effectively like scored than the minutes of Gamrot being on top, really not doing anything. I like Gamrot, I really do. But that Dan Hooker fight was kind of eye-opening. He could have won that fight. That was a split. He could have won it, but I was just so shocked how Dan Hooker, who gets destroyed in all like the high-level grapplers, Gamrot's not able to really like get him down like that. He did have some success early, but as the fight went on, like I feel like if Ribovich fights the way Dan Hooker did in terms of pressuring nonstop, sprawling the takedowns, eventually he's going to wilt him, and I'm calling for a third-round TKO for Esteban Ribovich in Miami, where he makes a statement in the lightweight division and he beats one of the older guard, as Alex alluded to. He's right. In the lightweight division, it's true. These new wave guys always get halted by these guys at the top who've been there and done that. I feel like Ribovich, this style matchup, it doesn't look like it's going to work for him, but I think the gap on the feet is greater than the gap on the ground. He's been taken down a lot of times in his fights, but he's never been subbed. I feel like if he stays safe on the ground, works his way back up, his striking will be more dangerous than Gamrot's grappling. I'm calling for a third-round TKO for Esteban Ribovich.
Let's hope for that. Next fight coming on to the welterweight division. We got Kevin Holland taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. I really want Randy Brown to win. Obviously, y'all know my hatred towards this man, Kevin Holland. I don't know who I want to pick. This is kind of like a coin toss here. I am going to favor Kevin Holland in this one. I will slightly favor him. I could see a world where Randy Brown just picks him apart. Mainly because a fat, out of shape Daniel Rodriguez, who his whole fight week, you can look this up, he was at whorehouses, strip clubs, drinking, smoking weed, etc., etc. He was doing all these haram things. And bro beat the living breaks off of Kevin Holland. Like, if this man can do that, could a Randy Brown, who is motivated and actually could improve in his game, do good? I don't know. I think this is screaming a Kevin Holland victory. I could see a club and sub here. I could even see a close decision. They really love Kevin Holland. I don't know what Dana has on. I don't know what Kevin Holland has on Dana or anything like that. But like normally fighters that aren't motivated to even do anything in the UFC, even though they're active, they do get cut. But he's still around and still getting these like winnable fights, which is crazy. But other than that, I'm not gonna make it a whole hate train. I will favor Kevin Holland in this fight. I do want to pick Randy Brown. I do hope he wins. I do hope he slimes him out. But this doesn't feel like a slime out. It feels like a I could just so see Kevin Holland sliming him out, honestly. I'll go with I'll go with a second round club and sub victory for Kevin Holland. I think he will look shit in the first round. Randy Brown looks good in the first round, but then he gets tagged and he gets Darce choked in the later end of the fight. I was just not impressed by that Bonfim performance, man. I'm sorry. Like, there's one way losing to a fat D-Rod that was out of shape, smoking, partying, and hanging out with prostitutes. But there's also, like, getting cooked by Bonfim, who I also don't think is that good. But, yeah, I think I've yapped far too long. I got Kevin Holland club and sub round 2.
When I told you guys before this podcast started that I was changing my predictions, this was one of them. I had an epiphany all of a sudden looking at this fight. I had Holland picked for similar reasons to Mike. I was like, you know what? Randy Brown's chin shot, that Bonfim fight looked bad. But, Holland's like reach. I'm like, you know what? He's going to be longer. He's going to be able to get to him easier. But he don't really use his reach. Despite having it, he doesn't really use it. And, despite knocking some guys out, he really hasn't knocked anybody out in a long time. I don't think, he's going to be able to just put away Randy Brown. I think he struggles with people who are able to keep a range on him. Like MVP, he like gets frustrated and, he's like a certified antics maxer. And I feel like, you take that compared to somebody who's probably more locked in, like a Randy Brown. I feel like Randy Brown's very fast. I think he's faster than Holland. I think Holland, he can win by KO or club and sub and, clip him on the chin. But part of me just like, I really see him just getting frustrated and like getting pissed and like throwing a pissy fit in the cage that Randy Brown's like piecing him up at range. Like I could see Randy Brown just like jab maxing and teep maxing and low kick, oblique kick maxing, and honestly mixing in takedowns too. I think they both can mix in wrestling against each other. I think they're a similar level of grappling, but I think the thing that hurts Holland in a big difference compared to Randy Brown is his takedown defense. I think Randy will be able to get in on the hips and get successful takedowns easier than Kevin Holland would be. And I honestly could see him mixing it in more actively. I could see Randy Brown making it a point, like get Holland pissed, like get him angry, aggressive with like the distance striking. And when he rushes in, that's when you time your double leg. Randy Brown's got some underrated wrestling. And, I was really close to picking against him because of that Bonfim fight. But looking back on it now, that was a very, very smart way to fight Randy Brown that Bonfim did that I didn't really expect him to do. I didn't expect him to, work the calf like that. I don't think anybody did. I think, people expected him to like win by sub or fluke KO if he won. But, he like chopped the calf down and then, found his shot, which I think is, a very smart IQ way to beat Randy Brown. Kevin Holland doesn't fight with IQ. I don't see, Kevin Holland going out there and like working the calf kick or anything like that. I think Kevin Holland winning this fight is he has to land a shot and a big one and chin Randy Brown. I think it's one thing to chin Randy Brown, but I think it's another thing to just like I feel like Kevin Holland, if it gets to the second round and he's already losing, he lost. He's gonna like bitch out and be like, "Oh, I didn't really try." Like at some point, I feel like Kevin Holland's just gonna accept losing a boring decision and like just emote in the cage. And I think it probably be sometime early in the second if Randy Brown gets his way and frustrates him. I'm going to go Randy Brown. I'm going to say 29-28 just because I fear Holland possibly getting a knockdown, probably getting around. But yeah, I think he just takes his career more seriously than Holland does, who's, trying to chase a rematch of a guy he just bailed out of jail. It just seems like, he's not paying enough attention to Randy Brown. And losing to D-Rod, in my opinion, is worse than losing to Bonfim. But yeah, I'm going to go Randy Brown 29-28.
Interesting fight in the welterweight division. This is like the Spider-Man meme, man. This is like they both they both like look similar, they fight similar, things of that variety. Both are 6'3", reach. I will say though, this fight to me is like technique, IQ. I would say Randy Brown, maybe even speed, power, durability, danger. I'd say Kevin Holland. It's interesting. I think in a decision-based scenario, I would venture to say I think most of the equity would be on the Randy Brown side. I feel like more often than not, if the fight went the distance, if no one got finished, if it went 15 minutes, I feel like Randy Brown would have been probably more educated with the striking, more better at range, and it'd be able to like elude and be evasive in the pocket. Kevin Holland, I feel like he has a majority of the finishing upside. I don't see Randy Brown knocking out Kevin Holland, and I don't see, at least on paper, him subbing him. I feel like I think submission wise, Kevin Holland would have the advantage. Um, it's an interesting fight. I feel like if it goes the distance, it probably went Randy Brown decision. If there's a finish, knockout or sub, I could see it being Kevin Holland. It's kind of like polarizing in that regard. I just really didn't like what I saw from Randy Brown striking wise against Gabriel Bonfim, who is a grappler first. But Alex did make a good point. That's a really good game plan to use against Randy Brown. I don't really know if Kevin Holland would commit to that. He doesn't really throw leg kicks like that. But, another way to look at both these fighters, one guy got finished by JDM. The other one went to a split. I didn't think it was a split decision, but he went the distance with JDM. So this is tough. This is a tough fight. I don't think either one's really going to try to wrestle. I feel like both are going to strike. I think Randy Brown's got the better jab. I think he uses his reach better. Reluctantly, I'm going to go Randy Brown by decision. I'm not that confident in it. That's just because I don't know what his chin's like and now his legs. I mean, if Kevin Holland starts just fucking nailing leg kicks, I'm going to lose my mind and like fucking Randy Brown doesn't check him. But I think he uses his jab well. I do like Alex's point with that, like, taller, rangier fighters have given Kevin Holland some problems historically. I feel like Randy Brown's got the better footwork. I'll go Randy Brown by decision. Close fight, though.
Moving on, we got a fight in the featherweight division. We got a Bellator title fight in the prelims between Patricio Pitbull taking on Aaron Pico. Honestly, bro, I'm just gonna keep fading Pitbull. I don't think he's good. Pitbull's not really that good. I know I've been hearing a lot of people picking Pico because they think his IQ is not the best and he does get himself clipped. But if you rewatch Pitbull's last two fights in the UFC, he looked as dumb as Pico, honestly. Ige could have won that fight if he wasn't retarded himself. It was just a battle of IQs, and Dan Ige just thought of this fight as a sparring match while Pitbull was just trying to save his career as hard as he can. So that's kind of why I think Pitbull won that fight, mainly because Extreme Couture guys see MMA fights as sparring matches more than they see it as actual competitive mixed martial arts bouts. And bro didn't even grapple against Yair, who is very easy to fight if you have a good grappling advantage. And Pitbull had the grappling advantage, didn't use it at all. I don't think he's going to grapple against Pico. I think this is going to be a striking fight. Plus, I think Pico's really good, man. I know he looked bad and he got kind of turned into a highlight reel against Lerone Murphy. But are we going to sit here and think that Pitbull is just going to eat that spinning elbow on the chin like anybody? I think Pitbull would get slimed out too by that spinning elbow. Like I don't think Pitbull's that good, man. I think he's just a Temu. He's just a Temu. I told Alex and Tony this. I think of him as like a Walmart, Temu, shitty Bellator bum version of Volk with no striking whatsoever, just power. That's what I think of Pitbull. I think he's just very mid. He's like a mid Bellator version. He's like a mid Bellator, like a version of a Volkanovski, where he's short, stocky, decent striking, and pretty good grappling, but just doesn't use it. But the thing with the difference between Volk and him is Volk is actually good. So I'm gonna go with Aaron Pico, younger fighter, hungrier, Pitbull's just trying to stay and keep his career alive and try to show people that he's still got it. Pico's just getting better, man. And plus, if he didn't get caught with that spinning elbow, I think he wins that fight. He could have won that fight against LeBron Murphy. I'm gonna go with an Aaron Pico second round finish. I think he's gonna finish Pitbull. I think Pitbull's just chinny, doesn't have it anymore, and I like that Pico's training with a TJ Dillashaw, a guy like him, and he has AJ McKee, who has beaten Pitbull in his corner, and not in his corner, but in his camp. He has trained with AJ McKee before, and AJ McKee beat Pitbull before, finished him too. So for him to have that in his gym and have that in his bag, have very dangerous grappling, and he is really young still, I'm going to go with the younger and complete fighter. I'm going with Pico, Aaron Pico, second round finish.
Yeah, this is our Bellator main event. It's funny, if you took this, like, this is the main event, then every fight down it is like Kevin Holland is the co-main. This is like the best Bellator card of all time. You know, it's funny that, you know, it's like a prelim in the UFC. It's just fucking hilarious to me. But, you know, yeah, it's this was like a Bellator title fight that was supposed to take place at a couple different occasions and never did. But it is now. Get hyped up, kid. But you know, I've seen a lot of people be picking Pitbull, despite the odds saying otherwise. I think Bedtime and Guru picked Pitbull, which I was pretty surprised about. You know, I really don't think Aaron Pico's that chinny. And, like, I don't think he's, like, necessarily even chinnier than Pitbull. Pitbull's had the longer career. He's older than Pico by, like, 10 years, 9 years. He's 38. Pico's 29. So, like, I really don't see it as, like, Aaron Pico's so chinny. Like, he's getting hit with, like, flying knees and, like, spinning elbows flushed that are putting him out. Like, honestly, fucking fair enough. Anybody's getting put out with those. It's not like he's getting, like, wobbled by jabs. I think in this fight, you know, it's going to be boxer versus kickboxer on the feet, and I feel like Pitbull has a tendency to kind of, when he wants to, engage in the hands. I think it's best for him to, you know, just work the calf kick, stay at range. I don't see him outboxing Pico in any regard. Pico's faster. He hits harder. I think he's the better technique boxer. He doesn't always fight in a rush like he did against Lerone. He can be tactical and kind of single shotty with it, like which isn't the best, but he has had some brutal KOs against bums. But, you know, MVP came over and was able to outstrike people despite that. And Pitbull's wins are against bums anyway, too. So it's not like, you know, you're getting outdone by Pitbull. Pitbull, he's got to work the calf and he's got to, like, get a submission. That's the only, like, things I see in his favor in this fight. I think everything else points towards Pico. If this fight were to happen when they were in Bellator, I would have picked Pico as well. I do still rate Pico as a prospect. I think he's a good fighter. I think he has a place in the rankings. He's still young. He's got actually good jiu-jitsu as well. He grew up in this Ortega, AJ McKee, South California BJJ scene, and he almost was an Olympian wrestler too. He's Golden Glove boxer, you know, grappled in Dagestan and Georgia and all over the place. So I rate his experience, even being a younger fighter compared to like a champion like Pitbull, who's like the Bellator GOAT, I guess. Like that means something, but I truly just think the explosivity, the power, the youth, all of it. I don't think there will be a grappling edge anywhere. This is going to be a stand-up fight, and all the danger and the speed, everything on the feet, as far as outside of the calf kicks, goes to Aaron Pico. I'm going to say second round, Aaron Pico, KO. Left hook. Tony, you're up.
Dang it.
Back. Prelim headliner of UFC 327, I believe. We are in Miami. This is the Bellator Super Bowl, man. This is just like Alex and Mike said, this is the arguable Bellator GOAT in Patricio Pitbull, who was a 2 division weight champion, going up against one of, by all accounts, the greatest prospects in American MMA, truth be told. Aaron Pico was like the Bryce Harper, LeBron James of like American MMA. No bullshit. This guy, just like Alex said, was a finalist in like Olympic caliber wrestling, like competitions, Golden Glove boxer, trained at the Gracie area where McKee and Brian Ortega trained in South California. Like, this guy was like one of the greatest prospects in MMA, in Aaron Pico, going up against arguably the GOAT of Bellator. And this is your prelim headliner. It's a great fight. I think obviously the more accomplished accolade fighter is Patricio Pitbull, having been a 2 division weight champion in another promotion outside of the UFC, and even beating a UFC caliber competition, the likes of like a Michael Chandler, to become a 2 division weight champion. Aaron Pico is a guy of a lot of promise, but unfortunately, his chin, at least in the eyes of the masses, is considered his greatest weakness for obvious reasons, as well as his decision making. Given being a Golden Glove boxer and having the wrestling credentials that he has, he gets hit with shots that you feel like he shouldn't be getting hit with. But let's review those shots, shall we? Let's look at those knockout losses. He got guillotined like in one of his like first couple fights that was like one of his that was his pro debut. I think he got guillotined, and he debuted in Bellator, so context. But his knockouts I want to look at specifically. He got shot by Henry Corrales with it was like a straight, I think, exiting the pocket. That guy's like a bare knuckle boxer. He's not that good in MMA, but he's a decent bare knuckle boxer. He has decent hands. He got flying kneed by Borix after he manhandled him in the grappling. Then he got spinning elbow by Lerone Murphy with a fucking a picture perfect elbow. I mean, I agree with Alex's sentiment that I don't really even think he's that chinny. It's just he's getting hit with absolute beautiful knockout shots, like a shot from Corrales, who's a bare knuckle boxer, a flying knee from someone as athletic as Borix, and the spinning elbow, Lerone Murphy. Like Mike said, I don't think a lot of guys eat that spinning elbow. A lot of them get knocked out there. Pitbull, in 45 pro fights, has only really been knocked out the one time. He had a leg injury, TKO to Benson Henderson, but he's only really been knocked out the one time in 2023 in Ryzen to one of their guys. It's an interesting fight. The narrative in the fight is that if you touch Pico's chin, he dies, but I kind of feel like that's Pitbull's realistic chance to winning. He needs to land a big shot. If he doesn't, I don't think he's out wrestling Pico with the credentials that he has. I don't really ever see Pico get subbed or manhandled in the wrestling. I want to see that real quick. Has he ever been subbed before? I don't think Pico's ever been subbed. I just want to see that. Oh, he has been subbed. Oh yeah, I'm tripping. His first pro fight, he got guillotined. But that was the lights were too bright, and that's a rookie mistake. That I'll give a pass for that. I don't see Pitbull out wrestling him unless he lands a big shot. I mean, I think Pico's striking looked good and before we saw him get elbowed by Lerone Murphy. It's an interesting fight, but I'm going to go Aaron Pico by – I'll follow Mike. I'm going to go second round ground and pound TKO. I feel like he could take Pitbull down and ground and pound him. I feel like he can drop him on the feet. I do think people think that Pitbull would definitely have the knockdown potential. Obviously, he, finished Michael Chandler. Why can't he finish Aaron Pico? I get that, but he's getting older. His speed is starting to, lose. Luckily, his power still is retained the older he gets, but I think all of his skills are kind of dwindling in some way. Yair Rodriguez, I think he dropped him, but the amount of top time that he had in that fight, that didn't sit well with me. I felt on the ground, Pitbull should be able to do whatever he wants to Yair. I do understand he didn't wrestle enough in his UFC debut against Yair as much as I would have wanted him to, but, Yair having as much time on top as he did was kind of interesting to me. I didn't think he could do that. And like Mike said, I thought Dan Ige kind of fumbled more than Pitbull won. So I'm going to go with Aaron Pico. I think he's hungrier. He doesn't have the accolades that Pitbull has. I think Pitbull is old. He's got his money. He made the UFC. He's kind of checked every box he needed to in his career. Aaron Pico at 29 still has title aspirations, and this is a fight set up for him to be in that spot. So I'm going to go Aaron Pico second round TKO. And a big bounce back win that he needs in his career.
Alrighty, moving on. We got the fight and the starting of the main card opener. Cub Swanson taking on Nate the Train Landwehr and Cub Swanson's final fight. I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to go with Cub Swanson by first round KO. I think he's going to take out Nate the Train. Nate the Train, when he gets on the feet and when he starts early, he does not look good. He's more of a later round guy. If he gets caught by, I think, Cub Swanson, who knows, I love how Cub Swanson is going into this fight. He's not even thinking about this as his last fight. He's just thinking about this as him still being in the UFC and still doing his job. I like that. When fighters do their retirement fights, they're kind of crying, reminiscing all this last moments in their career. Nah, Cub is just still thinking that, hey man, I'm still in the UFC. I don't want to talk about my retirement fight. I still want to keep going. Even though this is my retirement fight, I don't want to talk about this as a retirement fight. I still wanted this to be like me fighting in the UFC still. So he's still treating it like it's another Saturday for him, and I like that. I'm going to go with Cub Swanson, first round KO. I think he can make Nate the Train very vulnerable and on the feet. And for how he's looked at this age that he's at, a very old age, in his 40s, I think. He's 42, and he looked phenomenal against Billy Quarantillo. I thought that was crazy from a crazy performance from Cub, even though I picked him. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with the first round KO. I think he's going to catch him with a hook coming up into the pocket. I will be bold here. I will pick a first round finish to end this fairy tale end to Cub Swanson's career in a very happy ending fashion.
Cub Swanson, legend, retirement fight. Last time we see him, which is going to be pretty sad. He had a lot of fun fights. Even at his old age, he was still dishing out KOs. Honestly, looking more measured than ever. And honestly, I feel like his striking skills only got better. But problem is he got older, and featherweights aren't, Cub's height and his size really anymore. True, one of the OG scrappers and still scraps to this day, which respect. A lot of those guys, they lose their chin and stop fighting their style. Cub still fights that style and honestly got even better at it. So shout out to Cub. I think Nate Landwehr is a really good fight for him to go out on. It's very, very, very winnable, and it's fun. They'll both scrap. Nate is very vulnerable in round one, like Mike said. I really like that pick of a first round KO. Julian Arosa flying knee KO'd fucking Nate Landwehr in the first round. He's gotten clipped in the first round plenty. In hindsight, Dan Ige fucking dropping you in multiple rounds is a terrible look. You can't let that happen ever. I think Cub is honestly a better boxer by far than Dan Ige. I can say that. I feel comfortably at this point. I feel like he's got great hands. He's got great combo work. He's can enter this fucking flow state. And when Cub enters flow state, I feel like he's genuinely one of the most exciting fighters to watch. It's like watching he doesn't fight like Pereira, but it feels like it. And he's oh, he got his fucking number and he's just lighting him up. I think it was the Darren Elkins fight where he's just letting the kitchen sink go. Everything he's throwing is hitting. I think it could be similar to that fight. Landwehr really is not tactical and he'll just come forward. So if Cub gets his timing right away and he's you know what, I know, just enters that flow state, it's going to be a brutal KO. And I think it could be over very quick. Robbie Lawler, Nico Price, damn near quick. I think I'm going to follow Mike. I think I'm going to say Cub Swanson first round KO. By the end of the first round, he enters flow state and fucking shins Landwehr. And then rides off into the sunset with his damn near best performance in his career. Cub Swanson, storybook ending.
Main card opener, retirement fight of Cub Swanson, legend of the sport, as Alex and Mike alluded to for obvious reasons. This is a guy who has a win over Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier. Very rarefied air do you see people who have those names on their resumes and have a W next to them. This will be his last fight. It'll be sad to see, but it'll also be cool to witness a legend going out. This actually, with Cub Swanson's retirement, this will effectively be the last remaining WEC era fighter ever. This is it. this is the end of the WEC era, and we officially usher into a new age of MMA. Nate Landwehr, 37. He's not no spring chicken in his own right. Actually did pretty successful in M1 before coming to the UFC. And the first name that I'm almost positive he called out was Cub Swanson. So funny enough, he gets the fight that he's always wanted 7 years later after joining the promotion. This is a fun fight. This is why you notice the Bellator Super Bowl, they made the prelim headliner, but they made Cub Swanson the main card opener. I think that's for a reason. I think that's telling. A lot of people suspected that Billy Quarantillo was his retirement fight. I don't know for sure if it was, but either way, he's back here, and this is officially his retirement fight. I think Nate Landwehr is tough as nails. He's only really been knocked out like the 2 times that Alex alluded to in the first round by Julian Erosa Viennese, and I want to say Gilbert Burns' brother, Herbert Burns, by like a flying knee. Yeah, which is crazy. He's tough. He's got good conditioning. I think Cub's biggest weaknesses throughout his career was just kind of leg kicks and grappling. It's a vague, wide umbrella to say those are his weaknesses, but those are just what I've seen giving him the most problems. Giga Chikadze with the kicking game was able to get to him. Brian Ortega was able to get the grappling going. If you really just kind of throw hands with Cub Swanson, unless you're like flying knee prime Aldo, he can hang with you. He's a very good striker. His team has been on fire lately. Larry and Douglas. I want to say Rafa Garcia did a camp with them. He's actually going to become a coach after this fight. I think he's got good IQ. I think he's the better striker. He's obviously more experienced at a higher level. This is his last fight. I think he'll be motivated to go off in the sunset. And I'm going to follow you guys. I'm going to go first round knockout. This has a Robbie Lawler. This has a Michael Chiesa feel where they're just going to get the first round finish, I guess, for a lack of better words. If I was Nate Landwehr's camp, if he really is of the mindset to win and not put on an entertaining fight, I would recommend to wrestle and leg kick. But Nate the Train never really goes out there with a game plan. He kind of just hustles and he breaks you. That's how it works. I think the longer the fight goes, it would favor Landwehr on paper. But I think early on, when you're going to get them both at their best on best, I think Cub Swanson's tier of striking is levels above Nate Landwehr's. I picked Nate Landwehr in his last fight against Morgan Charrier, and we were very close to being right on that pick. And then he found a way to get knocked out by a series of shots that missed, but only we needed one Morgan Charrier, and he was able to put Nate away. I'm going to go first round knockout. I think he's just going to be in that flow state like you guys said. Landwehr is going to give him the perfect fight that fits his style. He's going to be right there to be hit, and Cub's just going to keep on hitting him until he doesn't. So I'm going to go first round TKO, Cub Swanson, in a proper retirement send-off. Legend.
Thank you, Cub. Anyways, moving on to a banger fight in the light heavyweight division. Dominic Reyes taking on Johnny Walker. I've seen a lot of people picking Johnny Walker, but I'm gonna go with Dominic Reyes, man. I know he looked very bad in his last fight against Ulberg, but I want to give him a pass on that because I don't think Johnny Walker would survive either against Carlos Ulberg. I think Johnny Walker can catch him, but Dominic Reyes is only losing to decent fighters minus Ryan Spann. I'm not going to say Ryan Spann's good. Other than Ryan Spann, I feel like that fight was just him out of his he wasn't himself in that fight. I think he was still like, dang, bro. I think everything was in his head. Man, I got knocked out by a whole bunch of people. I need this win. I feel like he was rushing a win too much while trying to come back and actually fight. But I think Dominic Reyes is still good, man. He had really good wins prior to losing to Ulberg. He minus the Anthony Smith one. He beat Nikita Krylov. He beat Dustin Jacoby. I think all those names that minus Anthony Smith, I think all those names, Nikita Krylov and Jacoby, I think they finish Johnny Walker, in my opinion. I don't think Johnny Walker is that good. He's kind of like a style where he has to catch you, and I think the only way for him to beat Dominic Reyes is to catch him with a flying knee or something. And I'm hoping I hope Dominic Reyes comes in cool, calm, and collected. I am going to go with I'll go second round KO for Dominic Reyes. I think he will catch him with that straight left coming in. And I think he will get it done here. I think Dominic Reyes is still pretty good, man. I don't want to write him out just yet, even though he looked bad in his last fight.
Great fight. Somebody's getting fucking starched for sure, which makes this this fight going to be really fun. I really think there's a small chance, but I do think there's a chance it turns into a Derek Lewis sort of fight. But I think it probably won't be. I think it probably will be a KO. Both of these guys' chins are just so bad, so that sets you up for a pretty good fight. You got Dominic Reyes, who's had a rough run, but he kind of redeemed himself and saved himself from being cut. Now losing to Ulberg, who's in the title fight, and Johnny Walker. Me and Tristan Tate sip at Johnny Walker in the war room. He's out here beating Minyang Zhang and losing to other people like Ozdemir. Kind of a similar trajectory. Whereas Walker's kind of just getting back on track, whereas Reyes got back on track and now is coming off of his first loss after getting back on track. I feel like Reyes has a really good style for counters. And I feel like Johnny Walker, despite being this crazy dynamic guy, he kind of fights similarly as well. He puts the pressure on sometimes, but often he doesn't. He likes to fight at kind of like that mid-range. And he'll throw some crazy shit, but it usually is like a counter. Like he'll get you sucked in and get you to throw something, throw a flying knee, or, grab the clinch and then throw the elbows or something like that. Like it isn't as just crazy pressure, throwing crazy shit at you all the time as people make it sound like. And I feel like in a counter for counter game, and I feel like Reyes is going to be countering too, I favor Reyes' counter ability. If they're both chinny, it doesn't really matter in a fight like this whether you get hit by a left hand or the left wheel kick a dome. They're both going to get chinned either way. They have no chin. And I kind of trust the more ABC basic style of Reyes to just be more composed and find the counter shot specifically against a guy like Walker, who I feel like is more reliant on his physical abilities and craziness and athletic ability. More than Reyes. I feel like Reyes is the better striker. Walker's like an athleticism merchant. I think in this fight, it really is going to be who lands the first big shot first. I could see maybe Walker getting him early, but like I said, he doesn't really go after it early and put that much crazy pressure. I think it'll be a counter game mostly where both guys are throwing big shots, but it's mostly trying to get this other guy to overextend so they can commit. And, honestly, I could see Walker doing something and getting Jamal Hill. Same way Jamal Hill did him. I think Reyes could do him similarly. I see Reyes and Jamal Hill as similar level strikers with similar strengths, both being their left hook, left side weapons. So I'm going to trust Reyes. Another fight I changed my prediction on. Originally had Walker, but I trust Reyes' style in this fight. I like his more basic, toned down style versus Walker's crazy one in a fight where one shot is going to be the difference. So give me Walker or Reyes. I'm say I can see it being a little bit slow up until the second round, but I'm going to say the end of the first round, Reyes finds a shot, like a straight left.
Interesting fight here in the light heavyweight division, main card in Miami. Johnny Walker, a guy who they were proclaiming as a John Jones' biggest threat, going up against a guy who's been toe-to-toe with John Jones in his prime, so to speak, and arguably won a competitive decision against the GOAT. Both of them now kind of Walker more on an upward trend, Reyes a little bit more on a downward, coming off that loss after having a 3-fight win streak over the likes of like Anthony Smith, Dustin Jacoby, and Nikita Krylov going into the Ulberg fight. It was really bad. Like, I really didn't like that. We didn't even really get to see the fight develop. He just kind of walked into a hook, like, with no answer. That's, like, honestly how I would think Walker would get done by Ulberg. It's kind of sad that Reyes was able to suffer that fate. Both these guys, notoriously, their durability isn't great. as we all know. I would say Johnny Walker is on paper the more athletic looking, the more wild, more like kind of like a variable you can't really quantify. Like he's just going to do some wild shit. Reyes, I think I do agree with Alex. He's more ABC. He's more technical. He's more like just more predictable, I guess, in that regard. Reach advantage, I think, is Walker. Off that last fight, I guess I'll say speed Walker. Reyes looked a little slow in that fight. I'll go Dominic Reyes. This is truly a coin flip of a fight. Both guys have durability issues, as we all know, but in a weird way, I kind of do fear for Dominic more. He's had facial issues coming off like the Yuri fight, the Ryan Spann fight, like the jab, like smashed his face. We didn't even know like what situation he would be, but now we're 4 fights past it. Anthony Smith didn't really give too much resistance. Dustin Jacoby, that was impressive how he got rid of him. Krylov kind of walked into a shot. I do think Walker, we're all predicting him to be wild and blitzing, but I could see this being a more calculated fight than people would make it out to be. I think Alex is spot on. Both these guys really do most of their best work off the counter, especially Reyes. You look at a lot of his knockout wins, a lot of them are like counter shots, especially like the Nikita Krylov one. That is like a perfect encapsulation of how most of his knockouts occur. If some guy comes charging in, he makes him pay for it with that straight left. Walker, he wasn't successful with it, but an example that Alex mentioned was like when he faked being hurt against Magomed Ankalaev and then threw a flying knee. He'll do some off the wall shit like that to try to make you give a false sense of security to come in the pocket, and then he'll go wild. Expect like flying knees, spinning back fists, unorthodox strikes from Walker. He's going to try to be like a Walmart Yuri, essentially. That's what I'm expecting from Johnny Walker. I'm expecting him, for a lack of better words, to be like a Walmart version of what Yuri Prochazka was against Dominic Reyes. I do think Dominic is less durable than he was then, but for that same sentiment, I feel like if Johnny Walker is going to try to do what Yuri did, Yuri took a shitload of damage to be able to inflict the damage he did on Dominic in that fight. I don't trust Johnny Walker to be able to take those same shots. I'll go with a. I'm torn between first and second round KO. I'll go first round KO Dominic Reyes. I think Johnny Walker is going to try to get the kicking game going early, body kicks and leg kicks, but he'll be going so low where Dominic looks like he's kind of just headhunting. And then I think he's going to kind of like throw like a body jab into a straight left. He's going to like touch Johnny Walker low and then hit him hard. And I'm going to go first round KO Dominic Reyes, bounce back win in Miami.
All righty, moving on. We got the featured fight. The fight that everybody's talking about. Curtis Blades taking on Josh Hockett. I've seen a lot of people picking Josh Hockett, despite him being an underdog. This is another fight that went off the weigh-ins for me. I'm going to go with Curtis Blades. I think he's the bigger fighter, and he's in shape. I like Josh Hockett. I know people don't like him because of his corniness, like that he had in the press conference. His whole fight week buildup was corny, but I actually don't mind it, despite it not really being my cup of tea. Like, I think it's a little, like, mid, the trash talk, but I think it's good for heavyweight, man. Like, I kind of hope that my prediction's wrong, damn near. Like, I hope that he wins. Because imagine him at a press conference against Tom Aspinall. That would be the funniest thing in the world. But I'm going to go with Curtis Blades. I think he's bigger. He's coming in heavier. He looks in shape. He probably looks like he's in the best shape that he's been in a minute. He kind of looked pudgy when he normally fights, but now he looks a little more ripped. Not ripped like Francis Ngannou ripped, but he looks in shape. And we never really seen Josh Hockett against an in-shape heavyweight and skilled. I know people are probably going to pick Hockett because of the Kuniev performance. The Kuniev performance was bad, but Alex told me that Curtis Blades was coming through a leg injury, and that's why he kind of looked bad. And honestly, rewatching that fight, I didn't watch that fight because I was at a party, a pool party around that time, so I didn't really get to look at that fight. But I heard it was mid, and I heard Kuniev arguably won. And once I rewatched it, don't get me wrong, it was boring, but you could tell Curtis Blades, it was off, something's off with Curtis Blades. He did not look like he normally looks. And in the beginning of the week, I was going to pick Josh Hockett, but this just smells like a TikTok edit for Curtis Blades fraud checking another top level contender. I could just so see him fraud checking Josh Hockett, and I'm going to go with the second round finish for Curtis Blades. I think his ground and pound is very good. I think it's going to be a sprawl and brawl thing for Curtis. And Hockett's striking looks good, but we haven't seen him tested. Curtis Blades' hands are getting a little bit better, and he's only losing to Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall. Who else did he just lose to? Derek Lewis is not the best win. I get that, but that's not the worst win. Like, it's not the worst win. It's not the worst loss. I mean, it's not the worst loss at the end of the day, because around that time, Derek Lewis was probably on the most hype that he's ever had in his career. But enough of my yapping. I got Curtis Blades, second round finish. I think he's going to sprawl the takedowns. I think Josh Hockett's going to play a little stupid, taunt a lot in this fight. I think he's going to treat this as like how he does against Blobs, where he's just taunting, trying to middle finger KO him. But I think this is going to be the fight where Josh Hockett meets his match in the in-shape heavyweight skill division. I do think he will be back, but I just think this is not his time right now.
Good fight. Bumping Hockett right up to the top 5, still unranked. I do think Hockett's really good, and it was good to have him at the press conference. And, he is very cringe, extremely cringe. Move over Henry Cejudo. The real king of cringe has arrived. But, he's kind of annoying. I kind of want to see him get slimed out. But that being said, he's entertaining. He's bringing shit to press conferences for the first time in a long time. Despite me kind of thinking he's I can't say that word. Damn. I guess performative, flamboyant in a way. What I was gonna go for, but he just kind of acts weird. Not my cup of tea, as Mike said, but it is entertainment at the end of the day, and he brings entertainment. He makes people annoyed. We're in a situation now where if he gets slimed out, he's humiliated. And if he wins, he backed up all that talk, and, it's another person's opportunity to slime him out and make him eat humble pie. And, that's always makes a fight more interesting. But to the actual fight, Hockett slimed out plumbers and fucking Uber drivers that were fucking obese. Curtis Blades is not obese. He's a big guy. He's a grappler. He's got hands. He's good on the back foot. He can throw calf kicks. He can throw a jab. He doesn't move like just some fat fucking heavyweight. He's big. He's not small. He's taller than Hockett by a good bit. He's listed at 6'4", whereas Hockett is just 6'1". 80-inch reach for Blades, 73-inch reach for Hockett. There's middleweights with a bigger frame than Josh Hockett. Josh Hockett could go down to light heavyweight very easily, and he would not, it wouldn't even be a very big cut. And honestly, if he loses, I could see that trying to build up into a potential Yuri fight down the line or something like that, since the spark's already there. Although Yuri would fucking kill him. It's always nice to beat these bigger, fatter guys when you're the smaller, more athletic heavyweight, faster, lighter man skill, all that. But when it comes to a bigger heavyweight that isn't dog shit, there is where you can meet your match. And Blades is going to be able to defend the takedowns. He's going to be able to strike with Hockett. This is not a bum. This isn't somebody Hockett's going to be able to just bulldoze, and middle finger TKO like Denzel Freeman, where he's just on one knee, just fucking getting aura farmed on. Blades is a big guy, and he's got abilities. He's getting better in the stand-up. I think he's got the record for most takedowns in heavyweight, and maybe even in a single fight. For his fight against Volkov. Curtis Blades is like that in the grappling. And, Hockett is a good grappler too. He's athletic, but he hasn't been proven at the level that Blades is. Blades has only lost to the best. The worst loss Blades has in the UFC is probably Derek Lewis, where he got slept. And, I mean, shit, Derek Lewis can do that to you. Hockett's never even had to face somebody like Derek Lewis. So, Hockett, and honestly, if Kudalaba moved up to heavyweight today, he would slime out everybody Josh Hockett fought in the same type of fashion. That being said, I think Curtis Blades could win by KO on the feet, to be honest. And for some reason, I kind of see it, like him setting him into a right hand as Hockett goes forward. Hockett's got to keep a pace. He's got to be active. He's got to be faster. I think honestly, if there's a grappling advantage, I'm going to trust the bigger, stronger guy in Curtis Blades to have the grappling advantage. I think, with the hype of Hockett, athletic, on a streak, it's easy to think he's going to win and kind of think it's maybe a closer matchup than it really is. I think Curtis Blades, despite not being the most entertaining heavyweight, he's been tenured. He's been around, fought the best, and I think he beats Josh Hockett on Saturday. I'm going to say, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to go Curtis Blades KO on the feet. It's going to be a Colby Usman sort of fight where the wrestling cancels out and they just box the whole time. Curtis Blades KOs him on the back foot, works the calf kick all fight too. That Trevor Whitman, you know what I mean?
I think it's going to be like the Joutson fight.
I could see that too.
Feature fight, I believe. This is correct. Yeah, this is feature fight of 327. This is a good one in the heavyweight division. You have your prototypical all-time wrestler of the weight class, essentially. By all accounts, he has the takedown stats. He has the control time stats. Curtis Blades is one of, if not the most prolific wrestler in UFC heavyweight history, excluding like Daniel Cormier. But like even then, his career at heavyweight's more extensive than Cormier's at a UFC level. He's had more heavyweight fights in the UFC. What a leap it is for undefeated Josh Hockett. This guy goes from fighting an undefeated Polish guy who I believe got cut by the UFC after that to then Denzel Freeman to now a top 5 matchup in Curtis Blades. That obviously tells you where the promotion wants to do with Josh Hockett. They see the views that he's generating. We all know how cringe he is. Move over Colby, move over Cejudo. You have the true cringe king here. But, for what it's worth, it brings views to the sport. It's something to talk about, and that's never a bad thing for the UFC. Interesting clash of styles. This is really interesting because both of these guys are American wrestlers and have been proven in different divisions. Josh Hockett, by all accounts, is the more credentialed at an NCAA Division I level. He actually went against Bo Nickel back in the day in collegiate wrestling. So that shows you like the level of fitness that Josh Hockett's at. This guy, like Alex said, could easily make 205. Middleweights have bigger frames than this guy. He's obviously not the biggest guy at heavyweight, but his speed, skill, and wrestling compensate for that lack of size. Curtis Blades is a JUCO national champion, if I'm not mistaken, in collegiate wrestling. And you know who else was a JUCO collegiate wrestling champion? John Jones. So that shows you how JUCO wrestling can translate to MMA, and Curtis Blades has the stats to back it up at heavyweight. It's a really interesting fight. This is a ridiculous leap in competition for Josh Hockett. The odds makers have favored Curtis Blades. I can understand why. You know who you really look at who he loses to, like Tom Aspinall, Ngannou twice, Derek Lewis. These are like knockout artists. These are like the most knockouts in UFC history. Very dangerous people on the feet, who I definitely would say are more dangerous than Josh Hockett on the feet. I do feel that. But even though he's known for getting knocked out in most of his losses, I feel like Curtis's grappling, he's legit, but his last couple fights, he's been kind of losing the grappling, in my opinion. The Jailton Almeida fight, he was getting taken down at will by a former light heavyweight lean guy who was just manhandling him early in round 1. And then Rizvan Kuniev, he was able to do pretty well defending the takedowns of Blades and inflicting his own damage in the clinch and things like that. I'm going to go Josh Hockett. I think his speed, I think his wrestling is legit. I think he can talk the talk, and I think he can walk the walk. I think he's catching Curtis Blades at the right time. If this was Curtis Blades, like when he fought Derek Lewis, even though he lost that fight, like that version of Curtis Blades, I feel like is more dangerous than the current one we're getting. I feel like he got away with one against Rizvan Kuniev. I picked him in that fight. I felt like he lost. I did not know that he came into the fight injured. Be that as it may, I still wasn't particularly impressed with him. I feel like he did like enough optics in the 3rd round where you can make a case, but still I pretty much felt like Rizvan Kuniev won that fight. Damage alone, very clearly in favor of Rizvan. The question is, can Josh Hockett land something on the feet to earn enough respect to grapple? because I could definitely see Hackett doing what Almeida did and just getting takedowns in the first round. But I think he'll have the conditioning. He'll actually inflict damage where Almeida didn't. And it's going to lead to a second round ground and pound TKO for Josh Hackett, where he's able to get takedowns on Curtis Blades. He's able to land ground and pound, and we all acknowledge that the cringe is horrific and it's terrible, but this guy has legit skills. What we're going to see him do on Saturday to a top 5 heavyweight is going to shock people. Curtis Blades is tough as nails. I get that. And he's only really been knocked out by very powerful, big heavyweights that were former champions, Aspinall and Ngannou. But I think Hackett's the real deal. And I think he will get takedowns. I think he's going to get a second round ground and pound TKO on Curtis Blades. I feel like he could hurt him on the feet, or he could just take him down and get straight to work. So I think standing or on the ground, he will get the TKO. Second round, Josh Hackett. You can't be that cringe and not back it up. Gamble. I think he's past the brink of cringe. He cannot go back and say, oh, it was just an guys, now that you were past that. He's committed so much, he has to back it up this Saturday. I think he does.
All righty, moving on. We got the co-main event. Paulo Boachina Costa is moving up to light heavyweight, taking on Azamat Murzakanov, 16-0 versus 15-4. I was gonna go with Paulo Costa. I really was. I did a lot of tape in this fight. I don't like how people are sleeping on Azamat Murzakanov, bro. Like, I know he's not the most in shape light heavyweight compared to Paulo Costa, who looks like freaking Clark Kent every time when he goes to a press conference, but Azamat's really good, man. And he's slimed out people that are Paulo Costa build. I'm gonna go with Azamat Murzakanov. I think it's gonna be like Paulo Costa looks really good, and then he starts slowing down, and Azamat just tees up on him and gets the finish. I'm gonna go with a third round TKO for Azamat Murzakanov. If a light heavyweight Marvin Vettori is able to wobble you, I think an Azamat Murzakanov can. He's undefeated. He's only been to one decision, and I even like that decision. It was against a glory kickboxer in Dustin Jacoby. I said the same thing about the Dominic Reyes one. I rate that win. Dustin Jacoby's very good. He's a very good, not top contender, but he's like your sneaky contender that makes that's still there, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I think Murzakanov is getting slept on a little bit just because he's a fat Russian and he's small. But hey, man, compare. I guess when he fights, the taller they are, the harder they fall, and I think we're gonna get a vintage Azamat Murzakanov performance where it looks close, but then Paulo looks a little tired because he is building up all that muscle. And we've seen Paulo Costa at light heavyweight. His cardio looks even worse than it is in middleweight. He gets tired, and that Luke Rockhold fight was horrible. I want to talk about that one. I know it wasn't a light heavyweight, but still, you're letting old man Luke Rockhold tee up on you. I don't like that. Yeah, I got Murzakanov, third round TKO. I think it's going to be a signature performance. Looks competitive. Paulo slows down. Murzakanov still trying to take his head off, and he does it in the third with a counter shot.
This is a tough fight. Costa moving up temporarily too. A little bit different circumstance from when he fought at light heavyweight against Vettori. Vettori, it was like an intentional, or he was injured coming into the fight. Like, I don't know what the whole situation was leading up to it, although it made for some good content and some funny memes with Costa. Like, that is your problem that I miss weight. That's not my problem. And funny shit like that. I like Costa. Azamat is a tough fight, but I'm going to be honest, I'm a dare to be great. I'm going to pick Paulo Costa to win. I think it's a huge advantage to him that this guy, Azamat Murzakanov, is honestly pretty significantly smaller than Costa. Costa is like 3 inches taller than Azamat is. Costa's 6'1", they say he is. and Azamat's 5'10", so 5'11", 6'1", 3 inches taller, which is kind of, yeah, it's the same height difference on paper as Blades and Hockett. So I honestly could, despite him being the middleweight moving up, he's still the bigger guy. Azamat's kind of like the Sambo guy, but he isn't a grappler like Khabib. He's much more of a striker. And when I say striker, it's not like a Zabit type of striker. It's the hands. He's a boxer mostly. Azamat wants to box. I honestly feel like the more layered striking attack is going to come out of Costa in this fight with the kicks. I think if we get a return of just like this body kicking, leg kicking Costa, that could really give Azamat some problems. I trust that his cardio is actually going to be better. He's not going to have to cut so much to middleweight, because middleweight's historically been a hard cut for Paulo Costa. And in this sort of fight at light heavyweight, he's not outsized, which is something you'd worry about with a middleweight moving up. And another thing about Paulo Costa that's a huge, like, oh, he'd never make it at light heavyweight, is his reach. Everybody calls him like a T-Rex because he doesn't have long arms. He has longer arms than Azamat. He's got a 72-inch reach. Azamat has 71.5, so just a half inch. But the dimensions don't lie. Azamat is the smaller guy, despite being a light heavyweight. And despite being the bigger guy, Costa is going to be coming in with the lighter man's skill. I think he's going to look very similar to middleweight Costa, just fresher and with a better gas tank. I really thought Azamat was looking really good against Menafield, and then I realized it was Menafield. Menafield is a can. I don't put too much into that. I feel like he should have killed Brenson Ribeiro slightly easier than he did. And the Rakic fight was impressive, but I feel like Rakic fought like a fucking idiot. Some fat dude from, I think he's from Cameroon. I think he was the guy they tried to pass off as the only Cameroonian fighter. I forget Francis never existed. Tafan Nuchukwi. He was about to win that fight. He was up 2 rounds until Azamat got him with like a flying knee KO in the third. And I don't know. I just don't really see him KOing Costa for some reason. He's older. He's kind of unk. Really not that great of a grappler too. And if you're picking like a Dagestani, you kind of want him to be able to mix that. And he does a little bit. Like against Jacoby, who broke his arm with a body kick, which is something Costa is really good at. He went to the wrestling kind of as a last-ditch resort, but Jacoby was able to work back up. Azamat did have a broken arm, as I mentioned, but his grappling, when he does implement, it's more out of desperation. It's not something he really goes to. And against Costa, I honestly like Costa's takedown defense and his counter grappling if Azamat were to wrestle. And I think, like I said, lighter man's skill. I think he's faster. I think he's got more options on the feet, whereas I feel like Azamat's just going to box. Azamat kind of strikes me as like a dude who had a hip surgery at one point for some reason. Although he does have very fast hands for his age. The size doesn't lie either. I'm going to go Paulo Costa. I'm going to take a risk on him. I like the way he's looked in his losses. I thought he won 2 rounds against Sean Strickland. He almost finished Robert Whittaker before he gassed. And, that's the thing you have to worry about with Costa is him gassing. But I'm going to trust, his last fight against Kopylov at middleweight, he went 3 rounds strong, didn't gas out. So I'm going to trust him at light heavyweight to not gas out either and to be able to take the shots off a guy who's putting out bigger guys than Azamat Murzakanov. But honestly, kind of bums, most of them. I'm going to say Paulo Costa. Fuck it, 30-27. I could see him breaking his arm with a body kick. I could see it being 29-28 too, but I could see Costa doing a masterclass. I'm going to say Costa 29-28 or 30-27.
Co-main event of the evening with the obvious fallout of Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira for the Flyweight World Championship. But nonetheless, co-main event in the light heavyweight division. You have Paulo Costa, the Eraser, going against Azamat, professional Murzakanov, undefeated. He is a knockout artist. He's coming off that first round. I think it was the first round knockout over Rakic. It was like the jab. He's got power. He's on the older side, 36, but you can get away with that in these weight classes. Undefeated as a pro. Competent striker. He's had a close call in the UFC. Like, he's gone the distance with, Dustin Jacoby in a competitive fight. And before he got the knockout in his debut against Typhon Nchikwi, it was looking like a sweat. But he's found a way to persevere and retain an undefeated record, and that is impressive going up into this co-main event. Paulo Costa kind of has accomplished, not even accomplished, just been in bigger fights. Title fight with Adesanya, high-level ranked matchups against Whitaker, former champion, and Sean Strickland, former champion. I guess in that regard, you could say he is the more experienced fighter in level of competition at a UFC level. He beat Johnny Hendricks, for what it's worth, a former title contender. So I think for me, this fight, I suppose on durability, you'd give the edge towards Mirzakhanov just because Costa got knocked out the one time, but that was prime Adesanya, so how much can you really hate on him for that? Aside from that, he's been able to pretty much take like Yoel Romero punches. He's been in there with Strickland, Whitaker, a multitude of other guys. He's been able to go the distance and not get hurt. Mirzakhanov the same. I feel like kicking, I would give the edge to Paulo Costa. I think body kicks, high kicks are going to be a big weapon for him in this fight. Boxing, I suppose I'd give the edge towards Mirzakhanov with power and accuracy. It's a really interesting fight. I think the longer it goes, it favors Paulo Costa. I agree with Alex that I think he came into this camp like around 2:30, so like he's going to be fresh. Like I think he will be all right for 15 minutes. I don't expect him to really get tired. You look at who he's really losing to. Marvin Vettori, I do hear what Mike's saying. Marvin Vettori was landing shots in that fight, and that's kind of discouraging because you have to think Mirzakhanov is more powerful and just a better overall technical striker than Vettori. And he's a true light heavyweight. He's fought at this weight class. So if he's able to land the same shots Vettori did in the boxing, you have to think Mirzakhanov can hurt Costa. The Rockhold fight, he mentioned the knockdown. That's not a great look, especially going against a powerful guy like this. But he's losing to like prime Adesanya, like one of the all-time chins, Vettori, who I do think has a better gas tank than Mirzakhanov. Sean Strickland, who's considered like the best pure boxer at middleweight, former champ, and Robert Whitaker, who was a former champ. I don't think Mirzakhanov moves like Whitaker. I don't think his defense is as good as a Strickland. I don't think he's as elusive as an Adesanya. It's a really tough fight, but the more I think about it, I feel like if Mirzakhanov doesn't get that early knockout, what does he look like in the later rounds of 2 and 3? Is he able to keep the pressure? Is he able to keep the volume? Is he able to sustain some Paulo Costa body shots where the forearms, like Alex mentioned, that Jacoby was able to hurt? Like I could see that being a big weapon here in this fight. And out of all the matchups at light heavyweight, we're seeing this trend where middleweights are coming to light heavyweight, RDR, Whitaker, now Costa. He has mentioned that he wants to come back down to middleweight even after this fight. It's tough, but I think I'm going to go torn because I did pick him in the Kopylov fight, but I do think Mirzakhanov's a better boxer. But out of all the light heavyweights, like this is a guy who's on Costa's frame. Fuck it, I'll go with Alex. I'll take the dog shot. I picked him once, I'll pick him again. I'm going to go Paulo Costa in a good fight. I think round 1 is definitely Mirzakhanov. He might even drop Costa. But I think him being as tough as he is, I feel like he'll be able to weather the storm, come back. And the longer the fight goes, I don't know what Mirzakhanov's gas tank at a high-paced fight is going to look like. He looked good in his last fight, Costa did. And I feel like at light heavyweight, like his gas tank should be fine. If Mirzakhanov doesn't find the shot early, I don't know what the fight's going to look like. And I'd rather gamble with someone who I know has been in a lighter weight class with more skilled strikers like a Strickland and a Whitaker and an Adesanya than a guy who's kind of been fighting like a Devin Clark, like a Typhon Nchikwi, and the guys that Mirzakhanov has beaten. So I'm going to go – I'll be bold. I'll go 3rd round TKO, Paulo Costa. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think Mirzakhanov wins round 1. I think Paulo chips away in round 2, and it's 1-1 going into round 3, but Mirzakhanov's going to look visibly fatigued where Costa looks like he may have caught a second win. And I think the reduced weight cut, the added power is going to pay dividends in this matchup. I'm going to go with the dog shot. I'll go Paulo Costa 3rd round TKO and a big one.
All righty, moving on. We got the main event of the evening. It is for the vacant light heavyweight championship. Former light heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka taking on Carlos Ulberg. Another tough fight to predict. 2 pretty decent fighters. I am going to go with the man, the myth, the legend, Yuri Prochazka, to take this fight. There's one thing about Carlos Ulberg that I don't like. I don't think anybody has tested his durability. Like like we have seen it before, and he lost, and it was against Kennedy Nizichukwu. Kennedy Nizichukwu was able to take him to deep waters, and we've seen the emotions of Carlos Ulberg when he is getting tested and pressured. He does not do good. You cannot do that against a Yuri Prochazka. Yuri's going to be moving forward. He is going to be eating whatever you throw at him. His defense is actually getting better too. Like, I've been seeing him doing these slip uppercuts, slip hooks. Like, he's been doing a lot of slip counters lately. I am going to go with Yuri Prochazka. I'm going to go with the 4th round KO. I think it's going to be a war. And then I think Ulberg is just going to slow down, and Yuri's just going to start like looking at him like, let's go for that. Just starts moving forward, keep pressuring him. It's looking like Ulberg will look good on the feet in the first 2 rounds, and then he starts gassing out. By the way, I don't like Ulberg's physique in this fight, coming into this fight. I think it looks a little unprofessional, especially if you want to be a champion. I don't like his whole attitude coming into the fight. Like, he's kind of like taking this fight like it's just, I mean, honestly, it is a good thing that you're taking this as like another Saturday. But like, dude doesn't look confident. He doesn't look cool, calm, and collected. He doesn't look skilled. He just looks like I'm getting a little jittery. I think he's getting a little jittery in this fight, and I think he's just gonna get picked apart. And I think Yuri's gonna get it done, man. I'm gonna go with a 4th round KO for Yuri. Prochazka gets his belt back, and he's also got a baby on the way. And I like the whole confidence in Yuri, man. I'm gonna go with Yuri. 4th round KO and new.
Main event of the evening, our boy Yuri in the title fight. Despite Yuri being the former champion and being in the UFC longer, and Carlos Ulberg being kind of like the prospect on his initial rise, Carlos Ulberg's older, which I was honestly surprised about. I figured he was younger. I figured he was like 30, 29, that age. He's 35. Ulberg's 35. Yuri's 33, 2 years younger, and a whole lot more experience. Been in Ryzen, been in the UFC, been a champion in both. Yuri Prochazka is going to win, and he's going to get the belt back. I love Yuri. It's going to be a great watch. It's going to be a great scene. Ulberg, on paper can give him some troubles, but everything I've seen this week has just made me more confident in Yuri. I'm sure Tony's going to bring up the World Cup later. But him having a baby, that's obviously, motivation, if anything. Ulberg has just had no aura. He's looked scared at the press conference. Like, he's damn near like sweating and shaking. There's rumors of him coming in injured and having like norovirus, coming in a little bit out of shape. Honestly, that kind of backs up those theories to me. Like, that's a little bit of like evidence to point that maybe those theories aren't just theories. He did weigh in. I don't think he's going to pull out at this point, but you never know. He could pull an Arman Sarukian real quick. I don't think he will, but just everything is pointing like Yuri's going to knock this fool out. In his debut loss, the only loss he's had in the UFC, he kind of emptied the gas tank against Kennedy, and Kennedy just started putting it on him, started throwing like crazy, and got into the slugfest back and put him out. And if you throw everything you can at Kennedy Nizichukwu for 2 rounds and you can't put him away, why the fuck would I think you're going to put away Yuri Prochazka? His best weapon is the left hook. The rumor is his left hand is injured, and if that's the case, there's no chance he's knocking out Yuri. Really just not much of a finisher, whereas Yuri is only a finisher. Dies on a shield or, wins by finish. 100% finish rate versus Ulberg. Pretty much straight decisions outside of Reyes recently. Close fight with Ozdemir. Arguable loss against Old Man Blachowicz. Bogdan did way more damage in that fight than this city kickboxing, guy than is supposed to be really good on the feet, but really doesn't have too many knockout shots out of the outside of that left hook. And I just don't see Yuri getting put down with it. This is an Alex Pereira, not much of a finisher, and Yuri is just kill or be killed. He's going to come forward for 5 rounds. Can we say the same thing about Ulberg? I'm not sure. Even if Ulberg's winning, Yuri could still win. He'll never be out of the fight. Khalil kind of wanted to fight technically against Yuri, and Yuri just eventually found his rhythm and fucking KO'd him. And I think, no matter what round it is in this fight, Yuri can still win. No matter how many rounds he's down by, he could be down 4-0 going into the 5th. He can still win. I don't think it'll get to that point. I'm predicting an early finish by Yuri. If all these injury stuff is true, I think it'll be early. But if it's not true, I think it'll be more like 3rd round, 2nd round. But I think Yuri is going to put him out and find the pressure, realize there's not a whole lot of threat coming back at him by some point in the 2nd round, and just chin him. Maybe it'll be early or later, depending on if he's injured or not. I think 2nd round is safe. I'm going to go Yuri, 2nd round KO, something brutal, gets the belt back, a good old wholesome feel-good moment. Yuri by KO, 2nd. Tony.
Damn. Don't tell me he's.
Sorry about that. Main event of the evening, UFC 327 Miami, light heavyweight championship. I mean, this is a good fight. These are the rifle candidates that you need to have for this fight. Carlos Ulberg, great striker. Yuri Prochazka, former champion. He's on a 9-fight win streak, Carlos Ulberg. People think he should have got here earlier, but, he doesn't really have the captivating way to get a crowd behind him. He's a very good fighter, but he doesn't sell out like Yuri sells out. Yuri is an all-time fighter. In my opinion, he's only lost to Alex Pereira at a UFC level. That speaks to how good he is. I feel like that's really the way you got to beat Yuri. He's only been in 1 decision in his career and never lost it. He basically has a 100% finish rate in all of his fights. He's kill or be killed. I feel like if Ulberg doesn't get the knockout early, I don't know what he's going to look like in 3, 4, and 5. I know he's gone a 5-round decision against Blachowicz and other guys. Like he had a competitive bout with Ozdemir, but Yuri is not. He's just nonstop going to be pressure from round 1 to round 5. We saw that in the Glover Teixeira fight. This guy doesn't care what the scorecards are. He's going to fight till the bell is over. I got Yuri Prochazka. I just feel like Mike said, Ulberg really hasn't been tested in a fight. I feel like he's done really well in matches of scoring, and he got the knockout against Reyes, but Reyes legitimately just walked straight forward into him with his hands down and got hooked. Yuri's going to walk forward, but it's a different way of walking forward. He rolls with the shots. His defense is getting better. His gas tank, his durability is all time. The only person that's put him down is Alex Pereira. And frankly, aside from Alex Pereira, King Mo, for those who don't know, he's like a guy on the regional scene. Like he's pretty powerful. Punch for punch, I think those guys, I reckon, hit harder than Carlos Ulberg. A lot of Carlos Ulberg's knockouts are counter shots, accuracy, placement on the chin. Yuri's definitely there to be hit, but he moves so much and he's going forward and hitting you that you really can't get the clean shot that you want. So I think we're going to see the Kennedy fight like times a million. I think it's going to be like nonstop pressure. He's going to have a fight with Ulberg. And even if he loses the first 2 rounds, I still think Yuri pulls this out. I'm going to go late TKO for Yuri Prochazka to get the belt back. I'll go round 4. I wanted to go round 5, but frankly, I don't know if Ulberg's going to be able to make it to round 5. I'm pretty confident Yuri can make it to round 5, especially if we're outside the first 2 rounds for obvious reasons. I feel like I said, Ulberg's got to snipe him early. If he doesn't, I don't think the volume's going to get better in 3, 4, and 5. Can he land investment shots to the legs and the body early? Perhaps. There is a small chance it's just like Ulberg's tagging him and then on the back foot for 5 rounds. But even in that reality, I've circled that scenario so many times in my head. I think 3, 4, and 5 are just too sweaty where Yuri eventually hawks him down and catches him. So I'm gonna go 4th round TKO, Yuri Prochazka, and new. And yeah, I think this guy is the rightful champion, and he gets it back. I'm gonna go Yuri Prochazka 4th round TKO.
Great card, great main event. And that'll do it for our UFC 327 predictions. Anybody got a fight of the night, performance of the night they want to say? I think he'll be fight of the night or performance. I think he will get a performance bonus of some kind.
I think it's going to be Yuri for performance. Cub Swanson, I think, is going to get his last bonus for sure. Who else?
If Pico slimes out Pitbull, I feel like they like Pico, so I could see them giving Pico some money.
Yeah. I'm going to go with either of those. I think fight of the night could be Reyes and Walker. Funny enough.
Yeah, I could see being fight of the night or performance. I could see. I guess I could see like Padilla Medeiros being pretty fun, but I don't think they're gonna get performance like 50K. Maybe Costa Mirzakhanov. That's pretty fun fight.
Yeah.
I don't think if Kevin Holland gets a KO, I could see them giving him 100K just because they like him too. You know, they have their guys. Like I feel like they like to give their bonus. Like if like Radke got a slime out victory, they wouldn't give him 100K.
No, I don't think so.
Like if Padilla or Medeiros got a KO, they wouldn't give them 100K.
If what's his name? If Tony gets this right with Ribovix, and if he does finish Gamrot, give him the bonus.
Yeah,
Gamrot don't get finished like that.
Yeah, and he would like set himself apart from like the other lightweight contenders.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I think that'll do.
Yep, that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. Appreciate y'all for stopping by and watching it. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, comment who do y'all got in between Ulberg and Yuri. And this is Wartime MMA signing off. And we will see y'all for the next prediction or maybe a next interview in the future. Peace.